everything he does. He keeps his promises, we know, because, yeah, the word of the Lord holds true. We can trust him, we can trust him. Yeah, the word of the Lord holds true. We can trust him, we can trust him.
Knowledge is learning something new so you can be better at whatever you do. We can grow in knowledge at school, at sports, or in music, and we can definitely grow in our knowledge of God. The more we know about God, the more we can grow in our relationship with God. Even when we're learning and growing, sometimes we face questions that we don't know the answers to. In those times, it's good to know that we can turn to God. All knowledge and wisdom comes from God in the first place. That's what it says in our memory verse for this month, Proverbs 2:6. Say it with me. The Lord gives wisdom. Knowledge and understanding come from his mouth. Proverbs 2:6. Let's say it one more time before next month's new verse. The Lord gives wisdom. Knowledge and understanding come from his mouth. Proverbs 2:6. That's right. Let's sing out and tell God how thankful we are to have a God that we can run to.
Whenever I need some answers, God, I turn to you. You are my help when I need wisdom. You always see me through. To know that you're chasing after me, it makes me want to run to where you are. God, you make this journey worth it. I give you all my heart. When I don't know what to do, you help me figure it out. God, I run to you. When I need a solution, I have no doubt that I will run to you. I run to you. I run to you. I run to you. I run to you. Wherever there is freedom, I know that's where you'll be. You make me want to do what's right and be the best version of me. To know that you're chasing after me, it makes me want to run to where you are. God, you make this journey worth it. I give you all my heart. When I don't know what to do, you help me figure it out. God, I run to you. When I need a solution, When I don't know what to do, you help me figure it out. I run to you. When I need a solution, I have no doubt that I will run to you. When I don't know what to do, you help me figure it out. God, I run to you. When I need a solution, I have no doubt that I will run to you. I run to you. I run to you. I run to you. I run to you.
As we pick up God's big story today, we're taking a look in the first book of the New Testament, Matthew. First, though, let's look at where we've been so far. In the very beginning, out of a deep, deep love, God made an amazing world. When people turned away from God, that world was broken. But God had a plan to make things right. God sent a baby to be born in the small town of Bethlehem, God's very own son, Jesus. Before Jesus was born, God sent another special baby to a priest named Zachariah and his wife Elizabeth. This baby was John. Now, even before John was born, an angel told his father Zachariah that John would point people to God. And that's exactly what happened. John grew up and became a unique kind of guy. He wore rough clothing made from camel hair. He ate crunchy locusts and honey from wild bees. John preached to crowds by the Jordan River, calling them to turn back to God and telling them about the rescuer who was to come. John also baptized people. As you might remember, John even baptized Jesus. Jesus came out of the water, and God's Holy Spirit came down like a dove and rested on Jesus. A voice from heaven said, "This is my Son, and I love him. I am very pleased with him." Around this time, Jesus went out to the desert to spend time alone with God. After Jesus returned, he began to gather followers and teach and heal people. John gladly pointed his own disciples to follow Jesus instead. Do you remember what John said about Jesus? He must become more important. I must become less important. John didn't stop his own teaching, though. He still spoke the truth, even to powerful leaders. In fact, John went head-to-head with King Herod, the ruler who the Romans had put in charge. John told King Herod that he had broken God's laws. As you can imagine, this did not go over very well with King Herod. In fact, Herod was so angry that he had John thrown in prison. Poor John was stuck behind bars. He heard little pieces of news from the outside world when his followers were allowed to visit him. One thing he did hear was that Jesus was teaching and healing people. But John started to get discouraged as he waited there in prison, month after month after month. Maybe John wondered, when is Jesus going to start getting rid of the Romans? What about that new kingdom that's supposed to come? If Jesus really is the Messiah, then why am I still stuck here? John wanted to be sure that everything he'd believed about Jesus was still true. So he sent his followers to Jesus with a question. These followers asked Jesus, "Are you the one who is supposed to come, or should we look for someone else?" Jesus told John's followers to go back to John and report to him about what they had seen and heard. Jesus said, "Blind people receive sight. Disabled people walk. Those who have skin diseases are made clean. Deaf people hear. Those who are dead are raised to life. And the good news is preached to those who are poor. Blessed is anyone who does not give up their faith because of me." We don't know exactly how John responded when he received this compassionate message from Jesus, but we can imagine how John must have been comforted by the fact that Jesus wasn't angry or annoyed about his questions. Now he knew for sure that Jesus still cared about him and hadn't forgotten him. When things don't go our way, we can easily forget what's true. We can forget the things that we've seen and heard. We can get confused when things don't go the way we expect. John had questions when he was stuck in prison. He needed to know that everything he had been working for was still true. He needed to know that Jesus really was the Messiah. So he asked, and Jesus answered him. It's important to note that we can always go to God with our questions. We can talk to God if we have questions about what we believe. We can pray and ask God for the wisdom we need. If you don't understand something, ask. Jesus' own brother James once wrote this: "If any of you needs wisdom, you should ask God for it. He will give it to you." All of us have things that we don't understand. But when we have questions, we don't need to be afraid to talk to God about them. God will welcome all of our questions with love and compassion. Isn't it good to know that we can always talk to God about our questions? If you don't understand something, ask. John was in a tough situation. He had been doing good things, following God and preparing the way for Jesus, and then he was thrown in prison. John needed some reassurance to know that Jesus really was the Messiah. But Jesus didn't have a problem with John's questions. It was okay that John had heard the voice from heaven say that Jesus was God's son, but still had questions. In fact, Jesus took the time to send answers back to John to make sure that John knew that he really is the Son of God. If you don't understand something, ask. Say that with me. If you don't understand something, ask. God is there to help us make the wise choice. God can help us grow in knowledge so that we can know more about God and we can live God's way every day. And don't forget, if you have questions, you can also talk to the people God has put in your life, like me, your small group leader, your parents or grandparents, or anyone you know who has been following God for a while. Sometimes God gives us wisdom through other people who have been following God for longer than we have. So don't be afraid to ask. In fact, you can start asking some of your questions in just a minute because it's time to head up to small group. Have a great week.